Washington, D.C. A tennis stadium slowly filling with fans. And on Stadium Court, a 21-year-old from the Philippines is about to write one of the most dramatic comeback stories of the entire WTA season. This is the story of Eala versus Leylah Fernandez, a defending champion, a reigning title holder standing on her own turf in the same tournament she won just 12 months earlier. And for one set, it looked like business as usual for Fernandez until everything changed. Because in the second set of this round of 16 clash at the Mubadala DC Open, Eala found herself staring down the barrel of elimination. Down 5-1, serving to survive. One shot away from a deciding third set that would have handed all the momentum back to the champion. Most players fold in that moment. Most players start counting the ways the match slipped away. But Eala is not most players. What happened next stunned everyone inside that arena, and it's the reason players, fans, and analysts across the tennis world are still talking about this match today. Because Eala didn't just survive that 1-5 hole. She obliterated it. She reeled off 5 straight games. She forced a tiebreak against a woman who had beaten her just months earlier. And she closed the door on a defending champion for the second tournament in a row. This isn't just a highlight. This is a case study in mental toughness, in composure under pressure, and in what happens when a rising star refuses to accept the story that's being written for her. Did I end the next few minutes? We're breaking down exactly how this comeback happened, game by game, point by point. We'll look at what went wrong for Fernandez, what clicked for Eala, and why this win means so much more than just a spot in the quarterfinals. We'll also explore Eala's incredible run through this tournament, her history with Fernandez, and what this victory says about her trajectory as one of the most exciting young players in the sport. If you love comeback stories, if you love tennis drama, and if you want to understand exactly how a player claws back from the brink, stay with us. This one has everything to understand just how remarkable this comeback was. You have to understand who Eala was walking into this match against, and what kind of tournament she was already having. Leylah Fernandez wasn't just any opponent. The Canadian left-hander was the reigning, defending champion of the Mubadala DC Open, the very title she'd won the year before. She arrived in Washington with a career-high ranking inside the world's top 15 and a reputation as one of the most dangerous competitors on the tour, a player capable of grinding out matches through sheer will, someone who had already reached a Grand Slam final earlier in her career. Beating her wasn't supposed to be easy. Beating her on her home turf in the tournament she owned was supposed to be even harder, and there was history here too. The two had met only once before, back in April at the Stuttgart Open, and it hadn't gone Eala's way. Fernandez took that one comfortably in straight sets on clay. So, heading into Washington, the head-to-head favored the champion, and the surface, hard courts this time, was really the only variable working in Eala's favor. But Eala wasn't arriving in DC as an underdog riding on hope alone. She was arriving red-hot. Just weeks earlier, at Wimbledon, she had produced one of the biggest upsets of the entire grass court season, eliminating the defending Wimbledon champion in the third round. That win alone had turned heads across the tennis world. Coming into this tournament, she'd backed it up immediately, grinding through a tough 3-set battle in her opening match against a reigning Olympic and Asian Games gold medalist to reach this very matchup with Fernandez. When these two walked onto Stadium Court on a Wednesday morning in Washington, the storylines were already stacked. A rising Filipina star with back-to-back statement wins under her belt, against a defending champion looking to protect her crown on home soil, with a head-to-head score that still favored the champion. What made the setting even more interesting was the atmosphere. The match was scheduled early, and by the time play began, the stadium was still filling up. There wasn't a packed house. There wasn't the wall of noise that often follows Eala into her matches, thanks to her passionate fanbase. For the opening set, she had to generate her own energy, and she did exactly that. Eala came out of the gates with immediate intent. She broke Fernandez's serve early to jump ahead, and from there she never let go of the initiative. Fernandez, by contrast, struggled to find any rhythm. She was making uncharacteristic errors, missing shots she'd normally convert, and looking uncomfortable against Eala's pace and depth. The gap between the two players in that first set wasn't subtle. It was one-sided from start to finish. and Eala closed it out in emphatic fashion, dropping only 2 games. At that point, everything pointed toward a routine straight sets win for the rising star. Fernandez looked rattled. Eala looked in complete control. Nobody watching could have predicted just how violently the match was about to swing in the opposite direction, and just how much resolve it would take from Eala to swing it back. If the first set belonged entirely to Eala, the start of the second set belonged just as completely to Leylah Fernandez, and for a stretch of nearly 30 minutes, it looked like the defending champion was about to completely rewrite the story of this match. Something shifted the moment the second set began. Whether it was the stadium filling in, whether it was simply Fernandez settling into her rhythm, or whether it was Eala's intensity dipping after a dominant first set, the champion suddenly looked like an entirely different player. She started finding her range. Her ground strokes had more depth. Her serve, previously a target for Eala's return game, started holding up under pressure. Fernandez broke early, and then broke again. She wasn't just winning points. She was stringing together entire games with authority, playing the kind of tennis that had made her a champion in this very city the year before. Game after game went her way. What had been a comfortable Eala lead in the match overall had evaporated entirely, and suddenly the numbers on the scoreboard told a frightening story for anyone cheering for the underdog. 5-1 in Fernandez's favor. At 5-1, Fernandez was 1 game away from forcing a third and deciding set. She was serving with the kind of momentum that so often carries a player all the way to victory in situations like this. Commentators and fans alike understood exactly what that scoreline meant. This wasn't just a rough patch. This was the kind of collapse that ends matches. Players who fall behind 1-5 in a set very rarely find their way back. The mathematics of tennis and the psychology of it both work against the trailing player in that moment, and yet, something in Eala refused to accept the inevitability of it. Rather than tightening up, rather than playing it safe and hoping Fernandez would simply hand the set away, Eala started taking bigger cuts at the ball. She held her own serve to get on the board, denying Fernandez an immediate chance to close things out. It wasn't a huge shift yet, just a single game, but it was the first sign that she wasn't ready to let this set go quietly. What followed became the turning point of the entire match. Eala didn't just steady the ship. She began actively dismantling Fernandez's momentum, game by game. She broke back. She held again. Each point felt heavier than the last, and the deficit that had looked so secure at 5-1 began shrinking with startling speed. By the time she leveled the set, the entire complexion of the match had changed. The player who looked finished 15 minutes earlier was now the one dictating play, and the champion who had looked unstoppable was suddenly the one searching for answers. This is the stretch of the match that will be remembered above all else. 5 consecutive games won from the brink of defeat, transforming a seemingly lost set into a dead heat and setting the stage for one of the tensest finishes of the entire tournament. With the set now level, both players understood exactly what was at stake. This was no longer about who had played better across the previous 40 minutes. It was about who could hold their nerve in the moments that actually decided the match. Eala pushed forward first, climbing to a 6-5 lead by continuing the aggressive, high-risk brand of tennis that had fueled her comeback. She was dictating rallies, taking the ball early, and refusing to give Fernandez easy rhythm on her ground strokes. For a moment, it looked as though she might close the match out right there on serve, completing the turnaround without any further drama. But Fernandez, credit to her competitive spirit, wasn't finished. Facing a match-point scenario with her back against the wall, the defending champion dug in and produced exactly the kind of high-pressure hold that had made her a champion in this city before. She broke back, leveling things at 6-6 and forcing the outcome of this entire roller coaster set into a tiebreak, the ultimate pressure test in tennis, where a handful of points decide everything. This is where the match reached its emotional peak. A set that had swung wildly from 6-2 domination to a 5-1 collapse to a stunning recovery was now going to be decided by a sudden death sequence of points. Anyone could have won it. Fernandez had just shown she still had the game and the composure to punch back. Eala had just shown she had the resilience to erase a 4-game deficit. Both players had every reason to believe the tiebreak was theirs to win, and this is where Eala's mentality proved decisive. Rather than carrying any hesitation from Fernandez's late surge, she came out of the blocks in the tiebreak with total conviction. She raced to an early lead, playing with the same fearless aggression that had defined her comeback in the games before. Point after point, she dictated the terms of engagement, pushing Fernandez onto the back foot and giving her no rhythm to build any response. Fernandez, for her part, simply couldn't find the level she'd shown just minutes earlier. The unforced errors that had plagued her in the first set crept back in at the worst possible time, and each mistake handed Eala more breathing room. What started as a tight, nervy tiebreak turned into a near formality by the midpoint, as Eala's lead stretched and Fernandez's chances of a response shrank with every passing point. By the closing stages, Eala wasn't just ahead. She was in complete command, closing out the sequence with a string of clean, decisive points that left no doubt about who deserved the win. The match that had swung through nearly every possible emotion, dominance, collapse, resurgence, and tension, ended with Eala firmly in control, sealing one of the signature victories of her young career. When the dust settled, the final score read 6-2, 7-6-1, in favor of Eala, a scoreline that, on paper, looks almost routine. But anyone who watched this match knows that number tells only a fraction of the story. Buried inside that second set was one of the most dramatic momentum swings tennis fans have seen all season, a collapse-turn comeback that will be replayed and dissected for weeks. For Eala, the significance of this win goes far beyond a single scoreline. This was the second consecutive tournament in which she had knocked out a defending champion. Weeks earlier, she'd done it on the grass courts of Wimbledon. Now she'd done it again, on hard courts, against a completely different style of opponent, under completely different circumstances. Back-to-back victories like that don't happen by accident. They're the mark of a player who has figured out how to win big matches against big names, regardless of the surface or the situation. This result also settled some unfinished business. Eala's only previous meeting with Fernandez had ended in defeat back in April, a straight sets loss on clay that could have easily lingered in her head heading into this rematch. Instead, she evened the head-to-head at 1 win apiece, and she did it in the most emphatic way possible by overturning a deficit that would have buried most players. Speaking after the match, Eala was candid about how difficult those middle stages had actually felt from the inside. She credited Fernandez for putting her under real pressure, admitting there were tough stretches where her own level dipped and the champion capitalized. But she also spoke about the mindset that got her through it, staying patient, trusting her game, and searching for solutions rather than panicking when the scoreboard turned ugly. It's the kind of composure that separates promising players from complete competitors, and it's increasingly becoming a signature trait of Eala's game. The win also carries broader significance for her season. Ranked toward the back end of the world's top 30, Eala has spent the past several months quietly building a resume that includes statement wins over some of the biggest names in the sport. Each of these victories adds weight to the idea that she isn't just a promising talent anymore. She's becoming a genuine threat at every tournament she enters, someone capable of beating anyone on a given day regardless of ranking or reputation. As for Fernandez, the loss ends her title defense earlier than she would have hoped, in front of a crowd that had been steadily filling in just as her second set surge began. It's a tough result to swallow, particularly given how close she came to forcing a decider after erasing that early deficit of her own. But it also serves as a reminder of just how unpredictable this new generation of WTA talent has become, with matches swinging on momentum, mentality, and moments rather than rankings alone. With this victory,